Now that we have come to the last part of our discussion today, inflation cycles. To study the interaction of real GDP cycles and inflation cycles, I'm going to distinguish between two sources of inflation. One is what we call demand pull inflation, and another one is what we call cost push inflation. As simple as this, guys. An inflation that occurs because of a shift of the aggregate demand to the right is called demand pull inflation. Once again, what is demand pull inflation? Demand increases, demand shift to the right, hence there is an increase in the prices of goods and services. Hence we have that inflation, demand pull inflation. Okay, let's illustrate this with our next figure. Initially, just say our economy is at the potential of full employment GDP. If I say that, guys, what are you going to draw? Okay. See, if I ask you to illustrate this situation, what are you going to draw? AD, AS is intersecting at the GDP level, which is equal to the potential GDP. We are at full employment. Then let me try to specify an event that is happening to put you into a better perspective. Suppose the Chinese economy is growing fast. Okay? So again, in this drawing here, we are talking about our Australian economy. Okay? But something is happening with the world economy, particularly with China. Suppose the Chinese economy is growing fast. Okay? If China is doing well, then we could expect that we create higher demand in Australian exported products. Okay? So what am I trying to say? At the moment we are here, we are at the full employment GDP level. Then China is doing well. Okay? They are demanding more of our export to them. Right? They are demanding more of our beef, okay? Our Australian products. So how are you going to illustrate this? What curve are you going to shift? The demand curve or the supply curve? Yes, which one? Demand. AD curve is shifting to the right. There's an increase. There's an increase in export. Okay? Because China is wanting more of our products. Okay? AD is shifting to the right. So let's do that. AD is shifting to the right. So what is happening here, guys? Now we are at a new point of equilibrium. Price has gone up. Can we call that demand pull inflation? Yes. Because AD increases, price has gone up. Not just price, guys. GDP also goes up. So where are we now, guys? What do we call this situation? GDP is higher than the potential GDP? Inflationary gap. Okay, price goes up. So there you go. You see what I mean by demand pull inflation. Demand shift to the right, price goes up. Okay. Not just that, GDP also goes up. Inflationary gap. Okay. I'm afraid, guys, gradually, price may go up even further, as what we previously discussed. Because each time real GDP is exceeding potential GDP, what happens, guys? Wages goes up. when wages goes up, AS curve is going to shift to the left. See, we had a demand pull inflation, but it doesn't stop there, the inflation. Price will go up even further as AS curve is shifting to the left for the very reason that I just mentioned to you. Okay, so at the end of the day, Y goes back to Y star or YFE, price increases even further. Repeated increases in AD will create this demand pull inflation spiral. Suppose for some reasons AD shifted to the right again. Inflation goes up, right? Price level goes up. But then, with the inflationary gap, AS will then shift to the left. Does that make sense, guys? Should we specify again with the use of visualizer? I think we should. Repetition is good, guys, especially with something that's a bit technical here, making sure that you got it. All right. So what did I say there? Initially, our Australian economy is at the full employment, okay, at YFE. Y is equal to Y star or YFE. So we have to start somewhere. ADAS is giving you Y, which is equal to our potential GDP. Y is equal to YFE, or if you want to use Y star, same thing. That's where we start. What did I say to you then? China grows. Okay. Australian export. Remember, X is export, guys. Australian export to China increases. All right. Remember this equation? C plus I plus G plus export minus import. Let me put D to signify that it's the demand that we are going to shift. Okay? So higher demand of Australian export by China, export goes up, AD increase, right? So that means AD will shift to the right. Okay? When AD shift to the right, just say AD1 to AD2, what do we see there, guys? There's a demand pull inflation. See, price has gone up. Okay? Not just that, guys. Comma, GDP also goes up. Go up to where? Go up to here. Let me call that Y2. So price goes up, P1, P2. GDP goes up from Y to Y2. Okay. Let's continue the story, guys. Now that Y is more than Y star, we have the inflationary gap. Okay. this pressure of inflationary gap is going to cause nominal wages to go up. See, inflationary gap means our economy is booming, it's doing very well, it's producing beyond the potential GDP level, guys. There's a shortage of labor. Remember that, guys? Okay? Wages goes up. When wages starts to go up, costs of production becomes more expensive, then AS will shift to the left. So from A to B, now AS shift to the left. Okay. AD1, AD2, AS1, AS2. So that's point C. Okay, C. Ooh, what happens here? Price increase even further. Y goes back to Y star. Okay. When I was a student, guys, I like to do this. Okay? Bullet points and try to have these logical steps, which I did not memorize, which I do not want to memorize, because I want to be able to, understand the logical steps. Feel free to repeat my explanation again using what I just presented to you here. Take a screenshot if you wish. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. We are almost there. That was demand pull inflation. Now I'm going to discuss cost push inflation. An inflation that starts because aggregate supply increases is called cost push inflation. My apology, guys, there's a mistake here. Can you change that to decreases? An inflation that occurs because aggregate supply decreases, we call that cost push inflation. Any factor that decreases aggregate supply can start what we call a cost push inflation. Okay? So once again, guys, can you change increases there into decreases? My apology. Initially, our economy is at the full employment GDP. You know where to start? Let me set a situation to give you a better perspective. Suppose oil price increases. Oil price becomes more expensive. That means the cost of production in Australia increases. That means our ability to produce is going to decrease. AS decreases. AS will be shifting to the left. When AS shifts to the left, what happens, guys? We were starting at that point there. Now we are at that point of equilibrium. Real GDP goes down. Price goes up. Cost push inflation. What caused that, guys? AS shifting to the left. What may cause AS to be shifting to the left, AS to be decreasing, One simple example is oil price becomes more expensive. That means the cost to produce goods and services becomes more expensive. Can you follow the logic there? We may not stop there, because each time real GDP decreases to below potential GDP, I know guys, now I'm bringing the Reserve Bank, okay? I'm bringing the Reserve Bank. That's why in the previous topic, guys, you get some exposure to the working of the Reserve Bank, okay? And how they may change the money supply, how they may change the interest rate, okay? Each time real GDP decreases to below potential GDP, the Reserve Bank may increase the quantity of money that will in turn reduce the interest rate. See, when interest rates is lower, consumption activity will pick up, investment activity will pick up, demand will increase, AD will shift to the right. When AD shift to the right, GDP level will go back to Y star, but price increases even further. What do we call this situation, guys? When price keeps going up and up again here, what causes that in the first place? A S shifting to the left. We call that cost push inflation. Okay? Should I repeat this explanation again using the visualizer just before we stop our discussion for this week? I think we should. Okay. So where are we starting? AD, AS is giving you Y. Let's call that Y1, our actual real GDP, which is at the potential GDP level. Y1 is equal to our Y star, or YFE. Same thing, okay? So Australian economy, just say at this point of time, is at Y, which is equal to YFE, okay? So an event happening now. What was the event, guys? Oil prices goes up. When oil prices goes up, that means cost of production becomes more expensive. Okay? See, changes in the oil price will influence production, will influence supply. So a S curve will shift leftward, shift to the left. Okay. So what is happening here? Y goes down, but price goes up. Okay? Price increase. What do we call this, guys? Cost push inflation that were caused by AS curve shifting to the left due to the higher oil price that is causing our cost of production to be more expensive. And we also see here Y goes down. All right? Okay. Let's continue the discussion here. Now we are at a recessionary gap. Because Y is below Y star. Okay. Now let's try to bring the RBA into this. You know, guys, when we are at a recessionary gap, the Reserve Bank of Australia may increase supply of money that will cause a decrease in interest rates in the economy. The lower interest rates will stimulate consumption. Okay? If it's cheaper to borrow money from the banks, we borrow the money from the banks, we consume more. Businesses will invest more. C goes up, investment goes up, AD shift to the right. So starting from point A to point B. Now we also have AD shifting to the right. A to B, B to C. So what is happening? Price increase even further. Price increase even further. All right. GDP goes back to the Y star. Okay. Cost push inflation. Due to what, guys? A decrease in the AS curve. AS shift to the left. Okay. Take a screenshot. Repeat my explanation again. And follow the activities. The other one that we did is a demand pull inflation. Which is caused by AD shifting to the right, increase in the AD. Okay. Demand pull inflation. Cost push inflation. Okay, let's finish off. Let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. What have I discussed in this topic? We looked at the AS curve, we defined that. We look at the shape of the curve, we talk about the potential GDP line, movement along, shifting of the AS curve. Then we look at the AD, we define that. Then we talk about what causes the movement along, what causes the shift of the AD curve. Then we bring the two forces together, AD-AS equilibrium. Last but not least, we have been able to utilize a DAS model to explain how trends and fluctuations in aggregate demand and aggregate supply bring about economic growth, bring about inflation, bring about business cycle. Yes, when I was a student, guys, I also found this particular topic to be a bit tough also, but I hope what I've done with my lecture presentation is systematic enough so that you have been able to follow and make good value to contribute to your learning. Okay? But don't you worry, guys. We'll see you in the workshop classes with the provision of more examples, more questions that will fine-tune, better fine-tune your understanding of this ADAS model. Thank you for putting the hard work, guys, to be with me in this particular topic of ADAS model. Well done. I'll see you in the next presentation. Thank you.